Hello everyone, and welcome to my first creator commentary. This is a type of video that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I haven't been able to, but since I got an editing software I can do stuff like that now, so that's cool. And the first level I'm going to be doing a commentary on is Miscellaneous Memory, because you guys wanted it for some reason. I don't know why you guys wanted this one first out of all of them, but you know, why not? So you may notice that there are 2 copies of Miscellaneous Memory in this folder, and that is because this level did have an old version and it was later updated, and the updated one is the rated one. So what I'm going to be doing first is I'm going to be going through the old version first, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the updated version. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so at the start of the level we have just a portal that sends you up, and it kind of syncs with the song a little bit. And then there's a little good luck, have fun up here, which I think is kind of neat. And then we get into this first part, which honestly, I made this part in like an hour when I was building this level. And it's honestly not the best. I mean, it's kind of weird. It uses 1.0 blocks with rainbow X thingies. I don't know. It looks a bit weird. It's kind of unique in a way, but it doesn't look the best. And I mean, the background is just I spammed question marks and made them rotate. It's not really that special or difficult to do. But one thing I really do like about this part is these little trail thingies that I made come out of the blocks with I used these grid blocks right here to do that. I think it looks really nice. It's probably the best part of this section, and I think that's really just it for this part. There's not really anything else to say about it. It's just the first part. Alright, now the second part. This part is one of my favorite parts in the entire level. It's one of the 2 parts in this level where none of the decoration was changed during the update, because I just really like this part. And I'll explain how it works here. So here we have, as you can see, we have 2 of these little 1.6 blocks, I think. I don't remember what update they came from. And as you can see, they kind of alternate using these alpha triggers right here. And just change back and forth, and I think I did that really well here. And I also really like these little, I don't know what they're called, pillar thingies coming down from the part. And the orb deco too is pretty nice. How I made the orb deco is I just took these chains, I set them to group 12, and if I can find the trigger, group 12, I just set them to rotate. Just gave them some random times, and it makes an interesting effect. And the main thing about this part is these goofy looking pads, which it's kind of the gimmick of this part. You can jump on and hit the pads and go up and down, and they're on the bottom of the blocks. And the goofiest thing is, for some reason when I was making this part, I used alpha triggers for the pads instead of toggle triggers, so they're all there at the same time. And I honestly don't know how this part manages to work because of that, but it somehow does, and it actually gets consistent. I don't know, I just think that's kind of funny. The background isn't anything too special, it's just pulsing squares that move and flip around in the background. It's not too much. And another funny thing is about the gameplay. This path down here, as you can see, there's a key. This key gets you to the coin path, which you have to corner jump off this block and go up. The goofy part is, the intended route, you have to double click this green orb. But like, the coin way is just easier, and it's kind of funny. Like, you just, I don't know why I made it like that. I just did. But, you know, I guess. Oh yeah, there's also pads in the ground spikes to give some particles coming up out of the ground. Anyways, that's it for this part. Honestly, one of my favorite parts in the level. Still, even with the update, I still think it's one of the better ones. Alright, up next, the ship part. The first rainbow part in this level, technically. So this part is also one of my favorite parts of the level. I really like this part. And it's one of those parts, there was a few things changed in the update. But overall, it's the same all the way through, like old version and update. So what I did is I just made some classic rainbow spikes. You take a spike, you give it some like hues and stuff. It looks like I just gave it random hues. Same with like these. And I made some, then oh yeah, this glow around the orbs and saws I think is really nice. I normally am really bad at using glow like this, and I think it worked out really nicely for these parts. And another thing is, the block design is really simple, and it's just a bit of rainbow gradient with some blocks. There's some grid blocks inside it with some 3D. Then the pillars coming down are just more rainbow glow with some of these things, and it's not too much. There's not really too much special. The background is just some slope things made out of those 1.0 blocks. I think the main star of the show in this level is, let's see, is these toggle orbs that come in the second half of the ship. I think using toggle orbs as background deco is something that is pretty cool, and I think should be used more in levels because I think it's pretty unique, and it also just looks really nice. I think that's the main star of the show for this part. I don't know, this part, I just like it a lot. It's another of those parts, one of the better ones. Not too much else to say, it just flows really nicely too, the gameplay. Even in the old version, when most of the gameplay was really bad, this part was like the only actually good part, gameplay wise, so I don't know, I think I managed to really make something good with this ship. Alright, next up we have the wave, which is the hardest part of the level, by far. This part is, and especially in the old version, it's kind of ridiculous in difficulty compared to everything else. So how this wave works, like, I don't know. The decoration is pretty simple for this part. I did use speed portals as ground spike deco, which I think is something that also could be used more in levels. I think it's a pretty cool thing to do. And the block design is pretty similar to the ship. It has like just an object inside to give it space, and then it has these, the animated ones as the base. Just got some 3D. These, I like using these things, especially because you could set them on a rotate trigger and make them rotate like this, and it makes it look pretty interesting. And just more rainbow effects, just with slopes this time instead of a gradient to mix it up. And the background for this part is it's just a bunch of spammed fire objects, which was kind of lazy, honestly. It doesn't look terrible, but it's definitely not great. And one more thing to note is the arrows. I think the arrows are really cool, like, if I can find where they are. It's cool to, like, make arrows like this where it starts off darker and just gets a bit brighter. I think it looks really nice in general. And the spikes in this part, I'm pretty sure, are pretty much the exact same as the ship. So not much to comment on there. And I think that's pretty much it for the wave part. No, the wave block designs are still up here, that's fun. But yeah. Let's move on to the second half. Okay, so the first maze part. This was my first time ever making a maze part like this, and I mean, as you can clearly tell, it goes like a decent amount of, it takes up a decent amount of the screen, which it probably didn't need to, if I'm being honest. Like, it's just object uses. This level has over 80k, which isn't great. So what I did was I just kind of, what I do for these kind of mazes is I don't make the gameplay first. I make the maze first, and then I build the gameplay around the maze. Which I don't know if that's how other people make their maze parts, but that's how I do it. I did it in Cluttered Confusion as well. Anyways, so what I had to do for this part was I had to mask the spikes, which kinda sucks, honestly. Masking spikes is terrible. It's so annoying to do. Like, it's really just a bunch of trial and error, because you have to fit it around, like, you have to fit objects around the spikes. The big spikes aren't too bad, but these spikes, and especially if I can find them, these ones right here are especially painful to do. And it was really tedious, and this part probably took the longest to build out of all the parts. And for the actual masking effect, it's these like grid looking thingies. There's like 5 of them, and they like rotate. Each one rotates differently, so it makes a kind of interesting effect when you're playing the level. This part and this level in general is actually inspired by Mind Machine by my friend Aimbotter. I think that level is absolutely amazing, both gameplay and visual wise, and it's the reason why this level exists, so it's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it for this maze part. There's not much else to comment on, except there's like these thingies in each little box, which is okay, I guess. It was just to fill up space really hastily. It probably could have come up with something a lot cooler. But yeah, that's it for this part. Alright, now on to the second maze. This part is the other part of the level that had 0 decoration changes in the update, because I do think this part looks really nice. As you can see, it's not like as tall as the first maze, but it's still probably a decent amount of this could have been cut off, like to save objects, but I didn't. So what I did for this part is I wanted to make kind of a gallery part where each like box has kind of a different thing in it. Like some have like this, and some have like some layering stuff. Some just have like a glow gradient. Some just have some blocks that like are rotating and stuff. And the orb deco, what I did is I got 2 X's and I just rotated them opposite directions so you can see both of them when you're going through the part. The like lining here is just more rainbow glow. It's not anything too special, honestly. This part is probably the second or third best part in my opinion. It really just, it gives off that miscellaneous feel with all the different stuff inside the boxes, which I really like. I think I did a good job with this. And as you can tell, there's not too many triggers in this level. Like, as I've been going through it, there's only a few up here, and like, there's barely any in this maze, and like, the wave doesn't have too many. Never does the ship, or like, any of these parts. It's mainly just coloring. Anyways, that's it for this second maze. We're getting close to the end here. So the final part of this level is the duel, which is probably the most remarkable part, honestly, because of just how insanely confusing it looks when you're playing it. But for now, let's just go through the editor on it. It uses that classic like blocks with 1 by 3, 4, 5 blocks with like the pillars protruding down, which is something I think works well in memory levels, like that kind of structuring. It just looks nice. And this part, what I did is just more rainbows pretty much, like some blocks. Then you have some of these which actually alternate between like smaller and bigger versions like that. I wasn't able to do that on the 3D though, so it kind of looks a bit weird, but it's not too bad. The ground spikes are just typical ground spikes. I didn't really do much with them. Now the thing with this level is the backgrounds. This part was like a lot laggier than the rest of the level, mainly because of this. Uses a lot of objects and it also rotates really fast. It looks decent though, but it was changed in the update. Then I also just made a few layering triangle things. I think layering backgrounds are awesome, and I really like it when levels use them, especially when doing crazy things with them. And inside these blocks is just some slopes and some pixels, which take up a lot of objects, unfortunately. This last part, honestly, it's kind of poop, not gonna lie. Like, I just made it really lazily. It just cycles between a bunch of different blocks, and you can even tell which spikes are real and which spikes are fake, which is, if you look close enough, which is not really that great. And I don't know, it's just, I'm not a fan. This part was entirely reworked in the update, which you will see shortly. And another thing to note is this last jump is a 60 Hz frame perfect, like, which is kind of goofy. When I was originally verifying this level, I said I would nerf it if I died to it, but I didn't die to it, so it just stuck with a 60 Hz frame perfect at the ending, which is not great, but, you know, it was changed in the update. Anyway, so I think that's all for the old version of this level, and my thought process, and how I made it, and what went on in there. So, like, now let's get to the updated version. Alright, so now that we've covered the old version, it's time to take a quick look at the updated version. And for this, I'll go over everything that was changed and why it was changed. Okay, so right off the bat, we have the first part, and as you can see, it looks entirely different from the old version. That's because this part was almost entirely remade, because it looked a lot worse than all the other parts, in my opinion. As you can see, the question marks are still here. They just look a lot different because I thought the question marks gave off a good memory vibe, so I still wanted to keep them in a way. And what they do is these move and rotate triggers up here. They like, each question mark is 7 objects, and it like moves up and down based on the move triggers. It's kind of like the effect in the drop of glide, and I think that effect is really nice, and I use it all the time in my levels. The background also is noticeably darker in this part, just because it makes the question marks just look nicer. And the block design is the 1.0 blocks were completely removed. The trail block things are still here because those were the best part of this part in the old version, and I wanted to keep them. This new block design is just some basic outlines with a few rainbow blocks, some of these right here, and with some, it's like the X's in the old part, except it's connected instead, and I think it looks better. And the spikes are the same as the old version. The saws are different. Not much to say about the saws really. It's just a black saw with some like rotating stuff inside it. And I think that's really it for the changes on this first part. Oh yeah, it also got block movements. It's one of the 3 parts that did. Block movements, they just add a bit extra to the part. I probably could have made them a bit better now that I'm better at making movements, but I still think they work fine. Alright, now we get to the ship. For the deco on the ship, there was 2 things One thing, this part got block movements. As you can see, some of the blocks are like in the ground. These they move up, like with these triggers over here. And another thing is I added these rotating, massively scaled up animated objects in the background. I think these objects are a very nice way to like add a bit more like space into your part, make it feel less empty. And that's exactly what these do, and I think they do them really well. There's two of them up here. One of them has a hue of change 30, and this one is just normal. It's on background blending with 50 opacity, and they have a rotation. Looks like I did not set a custom rotation for them, so they just rotate on their own. Other than that, the ship part has stayed the same, and I think it looks really nice. Alright. So for the wave, the block design is pretty much the same except for one little extra detail. If I can find it, I don't know what layer it's on here. My friend, who was helping with the update, Prime Ace, he added these gradients to the sides of the blocks. And you can see them a little bit, like if you zoom in a lot, you can see them. It's a nice little touch in my opinion. The background for this part, it still has the fire, but as you can see, it was completely remade. Fire, it's not just fire spam like this. It actually has, it's rotated and stuff like that. And it looks a lot better and looks a lot more chaotic than the original fire did. And another thing is, these little things were also added, these slopes. They move up and down when you're playing the level, and I think they match really nicely with the fire background. And all in all, the background in this part makes it look a lot better than it used to. And this is probably one of the best parts in the updated version, in my opinion. So for the maze part, there's not too much of a difference. You see I added these watery looking objects, it's these, but like super scaled up to make another animated object background, because with just the square grid rotating thingies, it looked a bit empty. So I wanted to make it a bit more colorful and vibrant. There's also a little gradient, like as you can see it's just black here. So you don't see the background outside of the maze, which you could in the old version. So that's a nice little improvement. And the little swirly things inside the blocks were just replaced with more swirly things, but they're like harder to see and it just adds a bit of texture to the part. Probably could have done something different here, but I think it works. Now we're on the last part, which is the duel. Duel has changed a decent bit. As you can see, the block design is entirely different. It still has the shuffling effect that the old one had, where it swapped between two different things. It swaps between, I think, it's just two different designs, bricks and then the 1.4 looking blocks. And the pixels got replaced with slopes, which save objects, and they look a lot nicer, in my opinion. Just, you can't really tell too much of a difference, especially when you're playing the level and it's going really fast. You won't be able to see it, but I think it works well. For the background, I got rid of the old background and I replaced it with, if I can actually get it right here, this thing. It's just these objects right here, and they are scaled up, flipped, and rotated because it makes like kind of a vortex looking effect. I think it looks really nice. I also put it on follow player X and Y, so it does follow one of the dual icons. I don't know which one, but you know, it does that. And I also did add a few big animated gears in the background, just to fill up some more space. The layering triangles stayed because I liked those. And now we get to the part that was changed the most, which was the last corridor. As you can see here, it was entirely rebuilt. And what it does is most of these designs are from other parts of the level. Like this one right here, it's from the ship. This one right here is from the second maze. This one is from the wave. And this one is from the first cube. The funny thing is, we actually made this for the final corridor before we updated the first cube. And then we needed a block design for the first cube, so I was like, why don't we just take these objects and use them for the first cube, since it would work nicely. So that's what we did. These objects here and these aren't like in the level, they're just there to make the maze in the last corridor look better. And the last GG has a rainbowy looking effect when you jump over it like that. And then there's the end screen. The level was optimized, so it does have below 80,000 objects now, which is very, very nice. And that's pretty much it for what the update covered. I think I covered all the biggest changes, probably all of the changes actually. Alright, so now that I've gone over both versions of the level, I'm just gonna give my final thoughts. I think this level deserved the star rate that it got. I don't think it should have gotten any more or any less. I think it's perfect. I'm very happy that it did get rated. I would recommend you guys try it if you want an easy memory extreme, because this is in the easiest tier on the not list worthy spreadsheet, if you know what that is. And yeah, it's really well received, so go try it out. And that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed.